and Intrapreneurship Program, The Key Success Factors by Celine de Grief. Before we move on to the presentation and the discussion, let me briefly introduce you to QAI. Are you all able to see my screen? Can you just quickly give me a confirmation? Okay, perfect. So briefly, QAI is a 25 years old transnational global advisory and consultancy and workforce development organization. We enable efficiency, agility, and innovation across our clients. Our interventions involve capability development and organizational transformation and focus on creating a measurable competitive advantage to our clients. Established in Orlando, USA in the year 1980 by William Perry, QAI now has offices in USA, India, China, Singapore, and Middle East. Over the past 35 years, we have enabled organizational transformations in 35 plus countries for 400 plus consulting customers and engaged with 50 plus ministries, departments, and governments. QGLUE is the design and innovation arm of QAI, enabling and accelerating design-led innovation through enabling culture of innovation, capability development, designing and implementing frameworks, and accelerating the adoption of innovation. While QAI addresses the operational excellence, QGLUE uses design-led practices to help businesses build services that people will love and that will impact the world around them. Using a human-centered and design-led approach, QGLUE equips people to solve complex problems by helping them reach a solution that's not only right, but also desirable. We not only help create a culture of innovation, equipping organizations with methods and tools to accelerate innovation, but also undertake to do an innovation for our clients. Leading thought leaders and practitioners across industries have come together in QGLUE to create an entity leveraging on the legacy and foundations of QAI. In alignment with our vision to evangelize innovation and adoption of innovation, we are inviting seasoned practitioners like Celine to share their insights and experiences on how we can become more innovative and competitive. So in summary, we are a team of designers, innovators, practitioners, and thought leaders. And a few housekeeping rules before we proceed further and hand over the mic to Celine. We have, for the convenience of all attendees in the webinar, we just have muted your audio, but you should be able to see our screen and you should be able to hear our voice and also see the presentations as well. During the session, you are open to provide questions. On the right-hand side, you'll see a small box called questions. You can click on that and post your questions, which we will take during the question and answer session. And there is a specific time assigned for it towards the end of the session for 10-15 minutes. So please feel free to post your questions. We also have live polls. There are a few questions which will make it interactive. So please do participate in the polls when they appear on your screen. You can vote and see the real-time results. And your participation in this step is really, really important for us. And thank you for joining once again. Let me briefly set a context and introduce Celine, to take over the particular session that we've planned for you today. Entrepreneurship, is a quite an exciting proposition for many of us, but the astonishing failure rate is a somber reminder that you need more than just a great idea to be successful. It is estimated that 90% of the startups actually fail. Often, entrepreneurs lack funding, business skills, a staff, and a myriad of other essentials. So the question is, what if a would-be entrepreneur did not have to leave their stable employment and launch out into the great unknown? And what if the employers provided the necessary environment and support for their employees to develop their entrepreneurial visions and contribute to the growth of the enterprise without losing the top in talent? We believe that this type of an arrangement can create a win-win scenario for both employees and employers. This is exactly what entrepreneurship is about. And it is my honor to introduce Celine, who has personally undergone this journey and also has enabled many journeys for other clients. So without any further ado, let me introduce our speaker for today, Celine de Greef, who is presenting her experiences on how to design an entrepreneurship program and the critical success factors that define a valuable entrepreneurship program. Celine is a very, just to give you a background about Celine, Celine has strong experience in the consulting field at PwC and Deloitte, and 3 years as part of the Louis Vuitton Group. Celine de Greef went from being an intrapreneur to become an entrepreneur by founding MyCrowdCompany in 2014. In 2018, MyCrowdCompany became the digital platform for entrepreneurs. She's a contributor from Forbes France and an author of Intrapreneurship white paper, and her expertise focuses on entrepreneurship, participatory innovation, and employee engagement. So over to you, Celine.
Hi, everyone. I just put the camera. I don't know if you can, you can see me. Thibaut is going to share the screen. Yeah, perfect. So I'm very happy you're allowed to attend this event. Maybe I will present in a nutshell what is MyCrowdCompany. So we offer a SaaS solution that helps our customers to promote and boost their innovation and entrepreneurship program. We are a team of 15 people. We're based in Paris, and we address the needs of large companies and SMEs across sectors. We work with major firms in France and Switzerland, such as LVMH, which is also my former employer, Safran, Thales, and Richemont, who has launched their entrepreneurship program at global level. So before we dig into the topic on how to design an entrepreneurship program, I would like to ask you a first question. So do you have an entrepreneurship program in place within your company? You also allow me to know who are in the room and the level of experience you have with entrepreneurship.
Okay, we give you guys another 15 seconds. So please put in your votes on the screen. The poll is live. All right.
That's perfect. You know, we had 64% of them voting, and an interesting observation that 82% of them do not have an entrepreneurship program, Celine.
Okay. So there is room for entrepreneurship in the coming years. This is amazing. So if I go to the presentation again, second slide, we can say that no entrepreneurship program looks like one another. In fact, each company is unique and their entrepreneurship program as well. So when you will design your program, you will have to consider different aspects, the company's culture, of course, the governance, for example, is your company very much centralized or decentralized, the type of business you are in, the risk sensitivity, the financial capability, your innovation life cycle. For example, if you are in a pharmaceutical company with very long innovation process, it's going to be very different from a retail company, for example. and also the geographical scope. So all these aspects count when it comes to build your own program. So let's ask you another question about the entrepreneurship. And the second one is about goals. What do you think, according to you, what is the main goal of an entrepreneurship program?
You'll all have, again, 30 seconds, and please feel free to participate, and please keep putting your responses there.
Yeah, goals is a very interesting question that we address, and we have to tackle at the beginning of designing a program with our customers.
Again, 58% of the attendees vote, and 76% of them are looking at transforming ways of working culture within the company.
Very, very interesting to have that statistics. Yeah, I think some companies, they want to promote cultural change, they want to change the way people work. So for those companies, it's more about the path and not so much the business results that they can get. They are looking for talent retention, from brand attractiveness. So they want to create more engagement within their teams. Some others, they will say they want breakthrough innovation. They want new business for their company. But I would say mainstream, what I see from the different companies I work for and even others, what they like is really to mix these two goals. And I will explain you later why. So if you look at the different aspects that counts when you start designing your program, so you have the goals, but you also have the terms and conditions that are often very different from one company to another. So I will give you a few examples. Some companies will allow their employees to leave their job for a few months to carry out a proof of concept or design an MVP. And if the result is convincing, they have kind of stage gate, and if they go to the next step, they will be able to continue, I would say, the adventure. Other will operate on a part-time basis. It means 1 or 2 days a week they can work on their project, but they will keep their current position. And finally, some others are more in favor of letting the entrepreneurs organize their working time and do whatever they want, even during their free time. So they will not define any rules. From my experience, the best, of course, is to leave the entrepreneur for a couple of weeks or months, 100% of his time working on his project. This is, for me, the most effective way of doing it. Of course, if it's not possible, I would then go on the part-time, more on 2 days a week. Very difficult for someone just to get some free time 1 day a week. The time that they get into the topic, it's already over. So 2 days would be a good compromise. And yeah, of course, when you the last one, I'm less in favor of that one. Because of course it's really depending on the individuals, the time they have, the type of work they do, and also if they are willing to spend some of their free time on these projects. And so yeah, you reduce the chance of success of your project. Another aspect which should be looked into soon is the financial compensation that you will give to your employees. It can be also very different from one company to another. In most cases, the company considers that the employee does not take any financial risk. At least that's the way people see it in France and in Europe. And therefore, there is no equity or participation in the new activity. To be honest, I have one counterexample, which is in Germany, a very big company called Deutsche Bahn. they have decided to give some equity to the employees who come up with an idea and who developed the project from the start. So yeah, it comes, and I think in the future, this is something that will become very important also to motivate the entrepreneurs to take that kind of challenge, I would say. When it comes to funding, the approach can be very structured with a dedicated budget. What we see is that very often they think about having this budget to start up the project, to do a first proof of concept. We call it seed funding, so small amount of money. And when we go to the phase of scaling up your project, you need much more investment, and there is often a pitfall is that the companies have not think about it beforehand, have not foreseen it from the start. So what happened is that sometimes some projects are abandoned because they don't have the money enough to continue, or they will have to go back to the classic budgeting process for arbitration, and that can also be an issue. So I think corporate has to work a bit like funds, and having, you know, seed money at the beginning and A-B series funding when the project is in more advanced stage. Now, if we talk about sponsorship, of course, the ideal sponsorship is to have people at executive committee level supporting the program. But what happened regularly is that some of the entrepreneurship program manager or innovation program managers, they decide to start small. They want to demonstrate the value for the company of having this entrepreneurship program. And for that, what they do is try to convince one ExCom member as a sponsor, and they will spread the word afterwards. So that's also something you can find out in many companies in terms of the way they will approach it. And finally, if you have done well all this work about defining goals, terms and conditions, the funding, the sponsorship, then you will have to define some KPIs to measure the success of the program. But we will talk about this later on. Now I'm gonna, sorry, we have an additional question for you. This is about if you launch the poll.
Yep.
I know that a lot of you in the audience, they haven't not yet an entrepreneurship program in place, but maybe knowing your company and according to you, what do you think will be the biggest obstacle when implementing an entrepreneurship program? Is it lack of sponsorship, no clear objectives, or no budget, some results difficult to measure, or HR and manager not fully on board?
Very interesting set of responses coming in, Celine.
This is cool.
Yeah, we have 45% of the people who voted, 48% now. So as you can see, the top criteria is that there are no clear objectives and no rules of the game, and budget and difficulty to measure results, you know, rank second in the list.
Yeah. It's interesting because in Europe I already asked this kind of question, and what comes first was the lack of sponsorship.
So we are eager to start entrepreneurship programs in India. That's the conclusion for sure.
Yeah,
and there's a strong sponsorship available, you know, in contrast to Europe.
So now I want to share with you some concrete use case. The first one I want to share with you is the one about LVMH, who has put in place a tailor-made entrepreneurship program for the employees, and it started in 2017. They launched a program called Dare, It's at group level. It has been carried out by the HR team with a very high level of sponsorship. It's Bernard Arnault himself who is the sponsor of the program. And they have mixed goals, some HR goals, which is to stimulate the entrepreneurial spirit of the teams and try also to promote new working methods. And they also, of course, have business goals, which is to be able to innovate in their sector. So how they are doing it. So during the event, the first edition they've launched, they have invited thousands of people within the company to participate in a call for ideas. And their objective was very simple. It was to give them the opportunity to share ideas about innovation in the luxury sector. So nothing fancy. 60 people were selected who had great ideas, and they were invited to come to an event called the Dare event to pitch their projects. And the pitch was in front of a very prestigious jury with executive committee members, CEO of their maison. So it was very interesting to see them pitch. I had the honor to be there for the first one. And during 4 days, they will be also supported by coaches. They will have also some methodology to try on during these days. And so the project will mature in a way during this time. And at the end, they will pitch again, and the 12 projects selected will have pitched their project. And after that, they will select 3 winning teams. These winning teams will be supported and sponsored also by top managers at LVMH to be accelerate and fund as well. So I think if I have to share some of the key success factors of their program, is that first of all, they worked a lot on sponsorship. It means that having Bernard Arnault and Chantal Gamperlé, the HR group director, it was great, but it was also very important to have other CEOs of Maison involved in the process. So they took some time at the beginning before going and start launching there to convince them and show all the value of the program to those people. And the second one, I think, as well, is that they really understand well what employees were looking for, and for being part of a former employee of LVMH, I can really understand is that for them it's very valuable to have the opportunity to pitch in front of very important people in the company. Is their idea giving them visibility. This is something the talent of LVMH is looking for, and the way they organize it, it makes people very engaged. They had a lot of ideas posted on the platform, more than 500 each time they launch a call for ideas. So that's also something that makes the success. I want also to share with you in totally different industry, which is Thales, is a major firm in France and worldwide on defense and space sector. And for them, a couple of years ago, they have launched, I would say, a new entity called the Thales Digital Factory. And the idea was to identify great ideas from employees and to incubate in the factory those projects for 100 days. And of course, after that, the idea was that these ideas were successful, who show added value, will go back to the business unit to be put in place and industrialized, I would say. And why they came to us is that The big issue they have is that they were incubating project, investing money for more than 100 days with some squad of 8 people. And at the end, no one was interested in continuing this in their various business unit of Thales, which was quite a pity. So with our solution, they were able to ideate, so people can drop their ideas, but also they can find fundings and sponsors. So the goal was to identify before incubation phase sponsors in the business who were very interested in making this idea concrete. So to come back to some key takeaways and then best practice about designing an entrepreneurship program, as I said, the first one is sponsorship, having shared goals. Make sure you have a mandate from your executive committee, and also that they are aligned with the goals of the entrepreneurship program. So take time to understand their expectation, maybe define a few KPIs, and then it will allow you to measure the success of your program. Find as well the right balance between HR and business goals. And as I said, this for a very simple reason, it's very important to have both goals, because if your executive committee is only targeting business goals, you can really challenge them about the reasoning behind launching an entrepreneurship program, because you can be much more effective to just work with startups or start working with business partners if you want to achieve this particular goal. But if you are only targeting HR goals, it would be difficult to have the support on the long run of your CFO, while looking more at profit making. And in times of crisis, and this is something that happened to big corporates in France, the program just stopped. We don't know why, but yeah, they were not able to show that it's generating enough revenue. And yeah, they will consider it as a nice to have or as a training program or something like that. So it's very important to have both. So you have the arguments to make your program sustainable in time. The next thing is, of course, set clear rules of the game. So that's also something you say that it's a big obstacle. It means that you have to think it well in advance. And why? To avoid frustration from your employees. You need to be very clear about the terms and conditions, what they may expect if their idea is selected for incubation. What about the IP rights? Do they will have a financial compensation? What happens if the project fails? People can be scared of losing their job, for example. So entrepreneurs need to know the rules of the game, what is at stake, if they will have free time to spend on their project. All of these things will reassure your employees and engage them to participate. The next thing is being exclusive. This is also something about selling it to your top management. So if you design your program for 20 people and your goals is to change the culture, change the way of working, is not going to work. So it means that not everyone is an entrepreneur, but making sure that somehow the employees are being involved in your innovation journey is key to drive change. So this is something we enforce with our solution. Entrepreneurs can easily identify the skills they require within the company as the support, and they will be able to perform some assignments. The next one is HR and managers, having them on board. So we forgot a lot in France, for sure. HR is a bit on the side, but now it's changing. And we believe that this is a key success factors because they will be able to unlock contractual issues, to link back the entrepreneurship program to the talent management program they have, to help you design as well the best way, the rewards entrepreneurs can have. So yeah, please talk to HR and also managers. This is something you have to think about, what's in it for them. Most of the time, they will have to let the best people go and leave their job to work on their project for a couple of weeks, for a couple of months. So it could really have an impact on their performance, and at the end, their bonus and so on. So you have to find a way to have them as a support. So you have to value them, you have to reward them as well. So that's key as well to have their support. And Pradeep shared statistics about the number of entrepreneurs who are failing. So the ratio is 1 project out of 10 will succeed. For entrepreneurship program, it's around 1 project out of 7. So you have to be prepared for success and failure. And I've seen a huge program in running in Europe, where only maybe 2 or 3 projects is super successful. And this is normal. I mean, this is a normal ratio. Not all projects will find its market. And yeah, you have also to set the expectation in that your top manager sponsor will have that in mind. And finally, from the startup mode is what I call when you start, you pivot, you do some proof of concept, you launch an MVP. This is all startup. But once you have traction, once things accelerates, you are ready to scale, you are ready to industrialize. And what we see is that moment is very critical. And sometimes corporates are not ready for scaling. And this is why I wanted to share some of the pitfalls you should avoid if you want to be successful with scaling projects. So the first thing is that you have to keep your sponsor, and maybe during the running of your project, you will have to change sponsor. Maybe you will have to go higher. So that's something the team in charge of the project should pay attention to. When I talk to teams, sometimes you don't have the right team on board anymore. So the one who had the idea is maybe good to do the start of the project, to experiment, to test, but maybe it's not the right one to accelerate or to industrialize the project. So you might have to do some changes, and this should be anticipated because for an employee who invested a lot in the project, being take it off could be quite frustrating, and you don't want that. So yeah, you need to take care of this as well. And what we see as well as pitfalls is that they believe, and it's all about expectation again, is that you come with a business of a couple of millions and maybe you do billions, and people think, okay, the business impact is not there, or the time to reach that level of revenue, it takes too long. So that's also something to anticipate and make sure people understand that and are aware of the time that things can take to go to a certain level. And yeah, and this is something I already shared, is the not having the appropriate funding. So it's good to have a couple of €1,000 to start, but when it comes to having a couple of millions to invest and being able to industrialize, if you haven't foreseen it in advance, sometimes the project is just abandoned, which is really a pity. I've seen some examples at customers, and the team is is dying. Yeah, so key success factors: set expectation, make sure you have real money for that phase, show traction, introduce very soon processes to make things repeatable. Don't work too long as a startup, and change core team members if needed. So that's basically it. I leave the floor to the questions to Pradeep.
Perfect. Okay. Can you 1 second? Can you all see my screen?
Yes.
Okay. So there are very interesting questions here, Celine, and I really thank you for making this a very insightful and very detailed insights into how an entrepreneurship program works. And interestingly, as you have seen, many of the organizations also have sponsorship relevant, for doing an entrepreneurship initiative. But one question that kept on, bothering me while I was listening to the presentation is, how do you know that a company is actually ready for implementing an entrepreneurship program? How do they find themselves as, yes, we should do something in entrepreneurship? So that's a question that's first on my mind.
I think, sorry. Yeah, I think we should go through a process before starting into it directly. The first thing, that's why I talked a lot about it, it's sponsorship. If there is no impulse from the management to launch that kind of a program, then it's going to be very hard for the one who's running it to have the support and the money and all these things needed to make it a success. Maybe I can share what happened once. We were asked a client, a big retailer in France, to help them design an entrepreneurship program. And so we worked with the executive committee and explaining them what is an entrepreneurship program about, what they have to take into account, the terms, the condition they have to think about, the money they have to put on the table, things like that. After all this process of a couple of weeks, they just realized that they were not ready for that, and they say, maybe we are ready to launch just an innovation challenge, ask people to come up with ideas, but we are not ready to invest in that kind of program on the long term. So I think, the best is to start working with them, really understand why they want to do that, the goals they want to achieve. And if everything is aligned, then you can say that you're mature enough to go and start your program.
Got it. And that's very interesting. And the next question that follows through, from what you just now said, is to find the right sponsors with the right commitment. That's when you have a clear start for entrepreneurship in an organization. The question from the audience is, how do you identify the right sponsors? Even if we identify the commitment level from the respective stakeholders in taking ideas to be implemented.
Yeah. You need to know well your organization first. Then, you have to find the ones who can support you. And honestly, if, for example, you don't have HR with you, is against you, or you don't have finance with you, it's going to be difficult. So there are some positions you need whatever it takes to get them on board, to convince them. So it should be quite at a high level. Don't go just to the manager. It should be, I would say, C-level.
Okay, got it. And the next question that we have here is, on the stakeholders again. Who will be the right stakeholder? In the sense, is it HR, or is it a business and a functional leader, or is it someone from the finance? How do you say this is the right, or how do you define who is the right stakeholder to talk to, specifically to innovation? And that's what the audience is asking me here.
I think the best is not to have only one sponsor, like for example only HR, because otherwise you will be stuck with only HR goals to achieve, and then you will get maybe CFO saying, yeah, but this program is just nice to have thing, it's not valuable. So I think when you identify your stakeholders, try to have at least 2 or 3 that together will boost your program, and you will have all the different dimensions needed, because you need HR, you need finance, but you need maybe someone strong in the business side. Could be a CEO, I don't know, it depends really on the structure of the organization or the business you're in. Maybe it's the marketing person or the R&D. So it depends. But my advice would be not to be just with one stakeholder, but have 2 or 3 at least.
Understood. That's a good point. So instead of actually having a single departmental head or a single functional head, the good practice would be to combine multiple stakeholders with a common business goal, who could be the owners of this initiative and who could be the sponsors of the initiative. That's appreciated. Fantastic. Now we have the stakeholders. Now, any tips and tricks on convincing these stakeholders to sign up on an entrepreneurship program?
One of my customers, they shared that they spent a couple of months meeting them, explaining the program. She did like a tour, in the organization, only doing that, only sharing the program, and also get their feedback and adapt directly based on what they say. So they have a sense that they also bring something, and at the end the program reflects also what they've asked, what they expect. So I guess take the time to meet people and to convince them and to get them on board. That's what one of my customers explained to me.
Okay, that's an interesting one. So the message is, let's take the time to meet people, to go in depth into understanding their real challenges, try and explain them the program, and keep on convincing them till we get the buy-ins from all the relevant parties. Okay, that's great. Now this next part, of course, is, let's say now we have the stakeholders and we have their buy-in and the program is initiated. And in the experience of some of the members of the audience, many of these programs, which are entrepreneurship, start very well. However, they end up as just an idea generating activities. So the question everyone has is, so how do you move it from idea to, let's say, something of value to business?
Yeah, that's the thing. That's why I'm sharing this steps and things you have to address to make sure, because there are many reasons why it's finished with just being an idea generation phase and then nothing happened. It's because the two pain points customers shared with me is that I have no money or I have no skills to do the job. So you need to set the rules of the game. You need to free up some time. So that's why I also said it's very important to have them a couple of weeks or months free, 100%. They can invest their time in their project. Because if you just say, okay, you had a great idea, now go on, but we don't support you. You try to do it during your work time, but maybe the person has a job already full, more than 100%, how we can do it. And that's why sometimes an idea will never become a real project, because the conditions are not there to succeed. So money, time, having also the manager supporting that process, the manager of this person. So that's why I said, if you're not ready for all this, don't start an entrepreneurship program. That's what happened with my former retailer customer. When I said all the things they had to put in place, they say, oh no, we will never be able to do it. And it's preferable. Otherwise, you do something so and people get frustrated. They share their ideas, they put energy, and at the end they see nothing happening. So it's better to do nothing if you don't do the whole process. So that's why it's really something you have to design from the beginning. And this is why I insist on that, having all these set before you launch. And I can really see it from all the customers I have, the ones who were prepared and yeah, put some stage gate, those are the ones who are succeeding. The others, yeah, maybe they will come up with one great idea, and then you will rely only on individual. So because individual are maybe entrepreneurs and not entrepreneurs, they will just do the job whatever it costs. But you have so little type of profiles in the company, so that's why you need to have the support there to help them achieve the results.
That's great. That's great. The next question is more around, the investment that needs to go into the program, and also what would be the best way to measure the return on investment. So the first question is, are these entrepreneurship programs typically budgeted annually, or are they taken as a program specific budget? That's the question number one. The second question is, how do you measure, in terms of the return on investment? What do organizations look for at the end of that investment?
Okay. So for the first question about the budget, we see different scenarios. Sometimes it's at central level. So for example, the innovation program team, they have a budget dedicated to start up the project that has been selected. For me, it's the more effective, because sometimes what happens is that some projects that comes up out of the process, they are not really, they are new business or things that are not interesting any existing business unit. So it's going to be difficult at the beginning to find a sponsor to invest. So having this money at central level give you freedom to fund all type of ideas, I would say. But what we see as well, it's a mix of having this central budget, and then also having business unit or brands or who would say, oh, this idea, this project, it's very interesting for me. I will also fund this project. And sometimes this was the case for the digital factory at Thales. They had a budget to incubate for a couple of, for 100 days, but then the running and then the scaling should happen in the business, and they had no money. So all the money was in the different business units. I would say it's difficult to say there is one best practice. It depends how you organize, and also what you will pick. You need to make some boundaries and process in place as well to make sure funding will continue over time.
Got it.
And the second question, can you repeat, please?
Yeah. The second question is, once the investment is made, the organization looks at some measurable returns, or some quantitative returns to say this program worked or it did not. So what would those measures be?
It fully related with the goals, HR goals, business goals. For business goals, it's quite quantitative. The money they make, the revenue, the profit. This is one of the indicators. Sometimes it's not only profit, it could be savings. There are very interesting entrepreneurs projects who allow big companies to save a lot of money. So that's also a KPI. And then for HR, it's more qualitative KPIs that you should put in place on, yeah, the engagement rate, the different, also the talent, how they evolve, if it could help mobility within the group. So different type of KPIs. It's quite difficult for HR to measure because we talk about talent attractiveness or retention, but it's one initiative, Intrapreneurship, on when you look at all the things that HR is doing to attract and retain their talent. So to measure it's the part of Intrapreneurship program into that, it's quite difficult.
Perfect. Okay. And the next question that we have from the audience is, when do you know that your Intrapreneurship program is not working and you should pull the plug on it?
That's a good question. I think if you don't get the support you need from the company, so sponsorship, HR, managers, and at the end you see that your entrepreneurs is just working crazy, but there is no results. They don't achieve anything. I think for the sake of the employees, you should start unplugging your program.
Okay.
It means that they don't see any value in it. So before you lose your best talent, yeah, unplug the program.
Okay. And there are many questions asking about specific data on Tails and LVMH in terms of just getting a sense of how they happen there, not anything confidential. Like what's the kind of ideas they generated, or the number of ideas that they generated through the Intrapreneurship program, or what was the typical duration of an Intrapreneurship program. So if it would be nice if you can give us some specifics, in terms of how was LVMH program successful, what indicators, can you throw some light on that?
What I see, it's difficult. I cannot talk about IDs for sure. I can talk about duration.
Okay.
What the way they're doing it at Safran, at Thales, and so on, it's like they create seasons or challenge they open. So every 4 months, maybe twice a year, 3 times a year, it depends. They will launch a call for IDs, and then the process will start. Selection, pitch, the ones who are selected at the end will be incubate, people will be coached. So yeah, they working in, I would say, in seasons.
And each season would be?
What did you say?
And each season's duration would be, let's say, is it a quarter, a half year, or like, what's the duration of a season?
It's 9 months, from 6 months to a year. It depends, and then you have stage gate, I would say. So the project will go from prototyping to acceleration, and maybe to more scaling, industrializing, and of course the one who will go further, yeah, they will continue beside the season and so on. So it's more for the pool of ideas that are, at the beginning selected, people are coached, they pivot, they pitch, they do a first concept. This is happening in 9 months, almost. Yeah, sometimes it's longer if you scale, of course. And in terms of volume, it's really depending on the different customers. Some, for example, at LVMH, they decided to ask the people a simple question: give your IDs, description, 250 words, that's it. So it generates a lot of IDs. But at Safran, for example, they are giving much more questions they have to answer. So the project is already more mature in the head of the entrepreneur. So you have less volume, maybe 100, but the quality is also higher.
Perfect, perfect. No, that's a very interesting insights there, Celine. And just in the interest of time, we have 4 more minutes. So what I would do is I'll ask you one more in the life of the individual who goes on to become an entrepreneur. So one interesting question I see here is, okay, I now am an entrepreneur. What's my next step in my career?
Yeah, that's a good one. Honestly, I don't have the response. We would like that there will be like an entrepreneur path, or yeah, but it's going to depend on your organization. What I've seen is it leads to promotion. It helps you, yeah, to get some visibility, more job opportunities, mobility in your job. So this is quite often what we see happening. But I would like to see that there is a kind of path, or we have entrepreneurs in the organization really well identified, and those people will go from one project to another and also sharing, acting a bit like entrepreneurs, but inside. And I think it could bring a lot of value because when you are an entrepreneur and you have this mindset, I think being stuck in a managerial role or the classic path, you will be maybe a bit bored after some time. So being able to go from one entrepreneurial project to another and really developing these skills that is really scared in the company would be amazing. But this is maybe just my dream.
Perfect, perfect. And I'm sure you can relate to that very well, right? You were an entrepreneur earlier, and then you became an entrepreneur, and I think that's a great story to remember. Okay, perfect. And the last one is, of course, there is a lot of disruption happening, a lot of changes happening within the organization during an entrepreneurship program. So the question which I think we can take offline and answer to everyone is, how do you bring in a method to the madness, correct? Or how do you bring in a discipline to the disruption that is going to be caused by an entrepreneurship program, and how to successfully run that? So that's a question. Any brief insight on that? Maybe a 30 seconds on that, Sabine?
I think I need more for that. Yeah, there are some process and methods available. Maybe you've heard about using business model canvas, having yeah, some agile methods and things you can use. But honestly, it's a bit like being an entrepreneur. You can have a couple of tools, but at the end, what would work? It's your experience, experimenting things, test, learn, change, be very agile. That's maybe the most important, besides having all these methods.
Correct. So as I hear you, there are a certain set of methods and practices and approaches, to launching an entrepreneurship program an organization should consider, and they probably should take some professional help, to start an entrepreneurship program initially. Am I right in saying that?
Yeah, it's true. We advise our customer as well on the design, because of course that's not easy. And all the feedback we have and experience with our former customers, it's really relevant for them.
Perfect. So on behalf of everyone, and I think we have just 10 seconds left, Celine, so really appreciate, and I'm sure we should have extended this session to probably 1.5 hours, and we should have just done Q&A, because there are lots of questions on the board. I have not been able to ask all of them. I've just picked the relevant ones for the conversation. what we can do as a afterthought is, we could take these questions and then put them into a certain sequence, and maybe, we'll take your inputs offline and share it with all the participants on your responses. Would that work?
Yeah.
Perfect. So let me just conclude. So thanks to everyone, who has joined in and who has actually listened to Celine, and really appreciate all of you taking your time out. As a quick update, we do have we have a next webinar coming up by Adam Billing, who is also presenting on remote design thinking and how to do virtual problem solving. The next webinar is on 11th of June. We shall be sending you some information. We also have QAI and QGLUE, have also designed a specific program, which is called the QGLUE Innovation Kickbox. So for those of you who are interested, we have a structured way of enabling entrepreneurship in your organization, which is completely, designed based on the successful Kickbox programs around the world. It will be great to hear, your views on the product, and we certainly can share more information if you're interested. Please do, join our group, of QGLUE on LinkedIn, and it will be great to have you there, because the conversations are going to continue on entrepreneurship and how to make entrepreneurship work in organizations. And and to thank everyone involved in this webinar. Celine, personally, really thank you, and really enjoyed learning. And to your team member Thibaut, who has been coordinating in the backstage all the while, I think a big thank you to Thibaut as well, to keeping it on track and on the time. And we have Devika and Kumar who are supporting on the infrastructure side. Thank you all. It was a pleasure, talking to you all. We'll soon be in touch with information. Thank you.
Thank you.